We are tiny lights that sparkle and glow in a world much bigger than we'll ever know. We are.
That's an interesting question. And what comes to mind is community. First of all, Toronto Conference has been a real gathering place of different minds and interests, different focuses on ministry, and so I really appreciate the different ways that people have shared that over my time. The other aspect of conference was the opportunity to share my gifts, and they have been gracious to receive them. Maybe not act on them, but just to receive them and to enjoy them. But what I found to be the greatest um, aspect of conference life is the sense of concern for the body of Christ, and that's revealed through the work that the executive has done, through its policy making, and through its generous gifts to inspire ministry to happen and new leadership and to help the refugees, and it just goes on from there, and so that's what I really appreciate about conferences is the scope of how they really provide a deep discerning thought to really create the community uh, that we now enjoy.
Toronto Conference has been like a playlist. So I'm up at Queensville Hollow Landing United Church. It's my first call, and it's a far drive, and I have a playlist every month. And I just bathe in the sound, and some of the music that I hear it's comforting, and some of it's challenging, some of it makes me think. Toronto Conference has been a place full of people who have mentored me, who have helped me discern my call, who have challenged me, sometimes during interviews and sometimes during my internship. I've been lucky enough to been surrounded by people who have helped me along the way, who have pushed me forward and said, okay, Maya, get moving. Sort of like the music that has caused me to get traffic tickets. I just keep moving and sometimes move a little too fast. And then I get stopped by the sound that calls me back into the fold, that has caused me to become part of the harmony that is Toronto Conference. And so here I am now, in the midst of this change, even though I've just arrived. And it reminds me of when the playlist has to change. It just has to change. It doesn't mean that the music is going to stop playing. It just means that there's going to be some change. And I just hope that I will continue to be surrounded by the people who have been my companions, my friends, my mentors, and I'm very excited to hear what happens next. And I'm just feeling really fortunate to be able to continue to bathe in the sound that has nurtured and nourished me. Let's change the playlist.
Toronto Conference has meant to me a place that I could go with my passions, whether it was on mission and service, United Church Women, or living into Right Relations Circles work. I always felt supported by Reverend David Allen and the conference presidents, which I have served under over the years, but not to forget the executive members. You were always a blessing to me, and I am going to miss my contacts with that level of the church. Conference was a very good liaison place. We didn't always agree, and I'm sure many were wondering where I was coming from, but there was respect and honor to the work of social justice, reconciliation, and what was needed to happen. Most times the support was there, and we had many successful events. Without funding and support of Toronto Conference, we couldn't have happened. You were a blessing to me and to those who were part of the work. I'm grateful for your continued support, even today, to the work that I'm involved in. You continue to make living into right relations work a priority, and also with our mission support, and was pleased that they're still a priority. I can't forget the staff at Toronto Conference for their support as well. Without support, things wouldn't have happened. They were most welcoming when I arrived. The best hospitality that could be offered to all of us who were meeting there. Delicious lunches and a change from bag lunches. Thank you all. I do have to thank my congregation, Trinity United Church in Newmarket, for their continued support that allowed me to be Living Water's first presbytery chair, and what an honor that was, and to be able to represent Trinity at York Presbytery for so many years, and later Living Waters. We have lived out our name over the past 9 years. Thank you with a grateful heart. Blessings, and may God bless each and every one of us as we begin a new chapter in the life of the United Church of Canada.
Yes, what does Toronto Conference mean to me? Had lots of experiences of Toronto Conference, but I really did enjoy my time as president, which was between 2010 and 2012. It was interesting times as we were into the new process. Several things stand out, and one was the opportunity to ordain. It was when I was president-elect and I was going to become president at the end of the meeting, and I was part of the ordination service, and it was just quite amazing to think that I had that responsibility and that gift I was given that gift to be able to ordain folks. So that was wonderful. One of the saddest times for me was when I presided at Carol Gierach, the president of Toronto Conference before me. David Allen and I presided at her funeral, and that was pretty tough. It was a hard time, and I know all of us miss Carol and were really sad when she died. I couldn't have done Toronto Conference presidency without David Allen. And he was there. He's a calm influence and so knowledgeable. And so he was always there by my side. And of course, when I was president, we were in Orillia, which was the St. Paul's where I grew up. And David was there through all the things that happened, and that was good. But he did let me down once because I lost complete control as the conference erupted into a flash mob. I had no idea what was going on. Apparently, folks have said my face was a little stunned, which is quite true. Yeah, but it was fun, and thanks to everyone who is part of Toronto Conference and all of the good work we've done. And I guess we'll all look forward to Region 10.
One of the things that I think was most important that happened, at least during the time that I was part of Toronto Conference, was a change in how we saw ourselves. And part of it relates to money. So at a very early time, there was a point when Toronto Conference, because of a variety of reasons, essentially didn't have any money. We couldn't pay some of our bills. And some of the other conferences in Ontario picked us up, and I've always remembered that. And then within a few years, because of church closures and property sales, suddenly Toronto Conference became very rich, and compared to other conferences. And what struck me about that was that we had only become wealthy because of an accident of geography, and that with the wealth came a responsibility about how we would use that money. And so over time, and it didn't happen overnight, but over time, I think we came to see ourselves as people who had a responsibility to other parts of the church. And I feel really proud of that. We were able to do things like assisting with grants for refugee sponsorship right across the country. We were able to give up our general council grant so that other conferences would have more money to do their ministry. We were able to start an innovative program like the Explorer Project, where young people would have an opportunity to explore ministry. And so in ways like that, I think we were able to take on our responsibility and to make a difference in the church. And so I feel pretty proud of that.
I really was active in Toronto Conference probably in the mid 80s into the 90s, and not so much recently. But for certain, as a lay member of my congregation, a lay rep to presbytery, and then a lay rep to conference, it really was a wonderful opportunity to experience the church in all of its broadness and diversity. And I certainly very much remember the sort of learning opportunities at conference annual meetings, and the worship in particular, that experience of a large crowd worshiping, singing together, being introduced to new forms of worship and new opportunities and new leaders in worship. So it certainly broadened my personal experience as a person of faith, and also gave me access and exposure to resources and approaches that I could take back to our congregation. I think I particularly remember probably the annual meeting where the material and motions around ordination of gay and lesbian people was discerned, and very powerful sense of being a court of the church in prayer and in discernment, and knowing our brokenness and knowing our sense of call. And so I feel that it was a place where I certainly heard the prophetic voice and the work of the Spirit, but not easy and not trite, but solid and mostly, worked through in love. So I think also as a congregation that sometimes brought motions to the wider church to move through the courts to the General Council, a sense of solidarity, the additional wisdom that was brought by others as motions were debated. I think our ongoing work around Israel-Palestine is a good example of that. Hearing the diversity and continuing to push and call for a response from a place of risk and prophetic commitment. So I guess the other thing is, just for me as a layperson, it was a way that I was able to participate in a general council. I was elected from conference, and that for me was an incredible leadership development opportunity for personally growing as a leader in my own congregation, and then in the church at large. When I served the General Council office as Secretary for Theological Education, I was well grounded through my exposure to the presbytery and conference. And for a young, I was a young woman and a young mother at that time, and I also felt the support of the church in responding to my need and the needs of others of my generation for childcare at the conference annual meetings, and eventually for childcare at the General Council, and so felt that I both was heard and also was able to open space for more women in my kind of life place to be engaged in those levels of the church. So, very positive, and it's going to be, I'm certainly part of the generation that feels it's a great risk to lose these courts, but also confident to be led in new places. So thank you.
Toronto Conference has been a home to me, and for me it's a place I found safety and home, especially when I sensed the call of God upon me and was struggling to figure out where God is calling me and where God is placing me. I found the United Church as the church or the home God is inviting me to minister through. And my home came as a result of being part of Toronto Conference. Toronto Conference has also given me a lot of opportunities and blessings. When I was struggling with my health issue, friends, colleagues, staff, and members of the Toronto Conference stood strongly beside me to support me. And I give thanks to people like the Reverend David Allen, who supported me in so many ways through throughout the time that I was going through the difficulties of my life. And I say thank you to God for Toronto Conference, for David, and for all the staffs, the staff members, and the ministers within the conference. It has been a place I've come to love, appreciate it, and I'm learning a lot from my involvement with the Toronto Conference. Thank God for Toronto Conference. Amen.
We are tiny lights that sparkle and glow in a world much bigger than we'll ever know. We are tiny lights shining so bright in a world we know is gonna be alright. Yeah, we know the world is gonna be alright, 'cause we got all these tiny lights.